Welcome to Fostering Solutions, a podcast that uplifts people and enterprises making positive impact in communities around the world. I'm your host, Dr. Michelle Foster. My guest today is Olubunmi Kusimo-Frazier. How are you doing, Bunmi? I said Bunmi.
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. I'm blessed.
Thank you for making time for this conversation. So let's start off by telling the audience about yourself. Who is Bunmi Frazier?
Well, first, I want to start by saying I'm honored to be here. Thank you, Michelle, for asking me to be on your podcast about leadership. Bunmi Kusimo-Frazier is not someone who thinks of herself, projecting as a leader. But I think that the way in which I am is that I think that we have to be what it is that we want in our lives. Mm-hmm. And so I was promoted into a position where I became a leader very quickly. And so I had to become that. Olubunmi, my name is Bunmi. Everyone calls me Bunmi. I'm from West Virginia. I was born and raised in West Virginia. I am Nigerian, Bahamian, African-American. So I am someone who grew up in a multi-ethnic household. My father immigrated to the United States from Nigeria in the 70s, and he met my mother, who was an African-American woman from Miami, Florida, in graduate school at Texas A&M. He was studying mechanical engineering, and my mother was getting her PhD. My dad got a job in Charleston, West Virginia, with a company called Union Carbide, which now does not exist, and is now Dow Chemical. And so my parents moved to Charleston, West Virginia, a place they'd never been, in 1979, and then I was born. I'm not going to tell you when. And so they've been here ever since, and I've been here most of the time. So I am a woman who has been exposed to a lot of different cultures from a very young age. I was, my first passport picture is me as a baby, right? Going to Nigeria with my family, with when my mom had just gotten my ears pierced. I'm nice. 10 months old. Uh-huh. And also I grew up in West Virginia. I grew up in Charleston, West Virginia. And I will acknowledge that I have somewhat of a privileged background. My mother, like I said, is a PhD. My father was an engineer. So I attended private schools. I went to private elementary schools, St. Anthony's, Charleston Catholic. I graduated. I was the prom queen. I also Merit Scholar, National Merit, Commended Student, National Achievement Scholar. So I graduated from high school with a lot of scholarship opportunities. And I decided to go to the Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University, also known as FAMU. I'm an HBCU graduate. I went to Florida A&M University. It was the best 4 years of my life. I promote HBCUs for young Black people because of what it did for me, going to private schools where I was often the only Black girl. Being in an environment where I was able to just be myself was, really, really wonderful. I also was very inspired. I went to Florida A&M at the same time as Kendi.
Ibram X. Kendi?
Ibram X. Kendi, yeah. He came to FAMU in 1999. I started in 1998. I was my boyfriend, my freshman year boyfriend's roommate was Andrew Gillum, who ran for governor. I went to Florida A&M University at a time when they were investing a lot of money in young Black people. And so I was around really inspiring people. Mm-hmm. I also was raised by a mother, like I said, who was a Black woman PhD. So I came from, I'm a woman who's never seen people not do what they put their mind to. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And so, I am a mother, I'm a wife, I'm married to Stuart Frazier. My husband, he does communications for the Department of Education. He also directs plays and is an actor. My daughter, her name is Naomi, she's 8. And every morning I tell her before she leaves the house, and I make her say it back to me, and we've done this since she was about 3 years old. You are Black and beautiful, and you can do anything you put your mind to. Because I grew up in West Virginia, you know what I mean? And so it's important for me to do counter programming from the start, okay? Mm-hmm. You can do anything you put your mind to. We start our day with that every day. So that is who I am. I do a lot of stuff with the community. Obviously, I know you through our community work. We met through our community work first, not through my mother. Mm-hmm. Then we, became Link Sisters. And so that's who I am.
Wonderful. And I met your dad before I met you, because we were both at Harvard at the same time.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Many moons ago. Absolutely. So as you hinted to the fact that you're now in leadership, you are the Director of Magistrate Services for the state of West Virginia. So describe, and you were a prosecutor, I believe, before that. So describe your career trajectory.
Yeah, so I graduated from law school and I went to Washington and Lee School of Law in Lexington, Virginia. And it's considered like a small Ivy. And so I graduated from there, but it was really difficult for me to find a job. And also when I was in law school, I kind of realized that I wasn't really turned on by a lot of like the super, I really love to read, and I was very much into, I've always loved to read. So that's one thing about me. So that wasn't difficult for me. But I really wasn't into a lot of the writing. And so my strengths lean toward public speaking. And so I had an opportunity to intern at the district attorney's office in Philadelphia between my second and third years of law school. And I fell in love with the courtroom. So when I was looking for a job, I have a mentor, her name was Nancy Hill. She's now passed away. But Nancy, she recommended and she helped me get a job at the Kanawha County Prosecutor's Office. So I started prosecuting in Magistrate Court in Kanawha County, West Virginia, where I now live. First off, and West Virginia has a rule so that before I even passed the bar, I was able to be practicing cases and doing things. So I got started right away. I was studying for the bar. They hired me. And I moved through the prosecutor's office. I worked there for about 4 years. In that time, I had the opportunity to appear before Judge Irene Berger. Judge Berger is the only Black woman who has served as a federal judge in the state of West Virginia. She was a circuit court judge at the time, and I was assigned to her courtroom. And she really took me under her wing. Judge Berger would pull me to the side and say things like, "Miss Kusimo, I can see your cleavage, and that is not acceptable."
Oh my.
Okay, right? But she was serious, but in love, I would think I had on the flyest outfit in the courthouse. And Judge Berger would be like, "Miss Kusimo, approach." And she'd say, "Not for the courtroom."
Oh my.
Okay.
In love though, right? In love.
But, in love, but also even if it wasn't in love, it wasn't for that. She wanted me to be better, and it was for me to get on her level, period, full stop, right? So that is the beginning of like my career trajectory. She gave me her phone number. I was able to call her at home when I had things going on there.
Good.
And eventually left there. I ended up working for a year in Jackson County, where, Michelle, I will tell you, I was the first Black county employee in Jackson County, West Virginia, as an assistant prosecuting attorney, me, in 2009.
2009, and you were the first Black employee in the county. Wow.
And I was a prosecutor. I was not a janitor. And I say that because often in state government, the positions that you see that open up for people of color are not positions of authority. And so I was able to make it there one whole year.
Wow.
before I came back to Charleston and I entered private practice. I was in private practice at a firm called DeTrapano, Barrett, DePiro, McGinley, and Simmons at the time. I was personally mentored by Rudy DeTrapano. I was personally mentored by Tim DePiro. I was personally mentored by Lonnie Simmons. Those three men are institutions in the legal profession. I left there and while I was there, I met my husband and I had a child, and it was very difficult. I was on the CJA panel for federal cases. So I did, you have to apply to do federal public defender work as a private attorney.
Okay.
So I applied for that. I got the position. I represented people who were from all over the country getting federal charges. My clients were, a large percentage of my clients were Hispanic, were Spanish speaking, and had gotten caught up in the Southern District of West Virginia web. And I also did a lot of representation of private clients in the state of West Virginia. And I represented people throughout the state of West Virginia in all courts, municipal, magistrate, circuit, and administrative. And then, I had a baby and that just wasn't working anymore. Being at the jail, wasn't working anymore. And so I, have a very good friend and mentor. Her name is Teresa Tarr. She said, there's a position in the Office of Counsel, you should apply. And so I applied, and the chief counsel happened to be a graduate of Washington and Lee School of Law.
Oh, small world.
And he also, and I happen to have the same criminal law professor. He had him at the beginning of his career and I had him at the end. And so I was able to create a connection. I'm just telling you all the real stuff, right? Like, right. How did you really get where you are? So I was able to create that connection with him about Professor Groot, who was an amazing, amazing person and huge inspiration to me as a criminal defense lawyer. Mm-hmm. And I got the job. So I started working at the Office of Counsel. I was there for about 4 years. And then the West Virginia Supreme Court went through an unbelievable kind of change.
During that scandalous time.
Yes, there was a huge scandal when I was working at the court. And, two of the justices were indicted, four resigned or were indicted and moved from office. Yeah. And so a whole new group of people came in and they were kind of reorganizing things. And one day I'd made this delicious soup and I was sitting down to eat it. And the director of Magistrate Court Services, she walked in, or director of court services, she walked in and she said, somebody brought up your name about leading magistrate court and I'm looking for a manager, not a director, a manager. And I said, well, I'm actually perfect for that. And I printed out my resume and handed it to her because I had my resume. And
how very assertive.
I'm actually perfect for that job. And let me tell you why. So I told her why. I told her I started my career in magistrate court. I know all the magistrates in Kanawha County. I know how to run magistrate. I had a practice at a law firm where I brought in money every month doing magistrate court cases throughout the state. And so I knew magistrate court. And so I got the job. I became the manager. I was the manager for about 2 years. And then I was thinking about my next step. And I was thinking, maybe I want to start my own firm. Maybe, I'm ready to do something else. And they approached me and asked me if I wanted to be a director and Magistrate Court Services. They actually said that they were creating a position for me so that I could step into the role of director and just take over magistrate court. And so I said yes. And so that was in the beginning of 2021. And so I am 16 months into my tenure as director of Magistrate Court Services. I will tell you another thing. I was in magistrate court. I was working as an assistant prosecuting attorney, and the director at the time, his name was Pancho Morris. He was a Black man from Jamaica. And he walked in and they were like, oh, that's Pancho. And Pancho's the director of Magistrate Court Services. And I looked at him and I was like, well, I could do that. And it's so crazy because it's stuck in my mind. Like the first time I met Pancho, I worked with Pancho later in Jackson County. At that time, he was working as a public defender there. Now he's an administrative law judge. But at the time, like that was the first time I met him. And also I had this idea in my head that like, I could do that, right? Like I could do what he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was just kind of so crazy that, 10 years later, somebody's approaching me saying, hey, you want this job? Yeah. That is my career trajectory.
Awesome. Lots of ups and downs and action and decisions, key decisions you had to make regarding family commitments and all that. So
Absolutely.
What advice do you have for women who are considering becoming attorneys?
I think that if you want to be an attorney, then you really need to do a lot of reading and writing.
Mm-hmm.
I was a big reader. My reading comprehension was very good, but I was a good writer. I did a lot of writing, but I had a business degree from FAM. I started in the 5-year business MBA program there.
Okay.
And I really started as pre-med biochemistry.
Okay.
And I was in Florida and I spent like one Friday in a lab while everybody was partying on the set at FAMU. And I said, this will not be my life. So I switched to the 5-year MBA program, okay? Because I knew I could handle that. But then I was in it and I didn't really love it. I didn't think that I wanted an MBA. I thought if I wanted an MBA, then maybe I would want to go to an Ivy League school. And so I pulled out and I decided to, and I was really going to become an African American history major. And my parents were like, absolutely not.
I can hear your mom saying that.
Yeah, both of them were like, that is not the key. So I wound up becoming, I wound up going to the 4-year program. I became I was a business administration major. Years in business administration, and I got a minor in African American history. So that was the compromise. So I hadn't really planned on that. I was doing a lot of presentations. I was doing a lot of public speaking. One thing about me, when I was in high school, I did a lot of speech competitions. I went to national speech competitions. And so for a very long time, I have cultivated my public speaking ability. So I would say that if you want to be a lawyer, it's really important, because I literally woke up one day and it was, I don't know because I was thinking about this, when I read your questions, and I don't know if Legally Blonde came out first or if Bunmi got the idea that I should go to law school as I walked across campus one day. But it was just like, I should go to law school. And so I just did it. Okay. And so that's like another thing. If you decide you want to go to law school, it is not an easy process. You have to just do it. Okay. You have to fill out the stuff. You've got to get the recommendations. You've got to take the LSAT. You've got to go visit the schools. You've got to do it. A lot of people, I've been out of school a long time now. A lot of people have approached me. I want to go to law school. I want to go to law school. Like, I don't want to hear the talk. What's your LSAT score? Who are you looking to? Have you talked about your recommendations? It's not helpful. You know what I mean? If you don't have a plan of action and you don't execute. And I was the first lawyer in my family. So if I wanted to go to law school, then I had to figure it out myself. I didn't have anybody who was going to tell me how to do it.
Right.
And so I think that, you really have to be kind of single-minded the way that I was, because once you get in, there's really not room for a whole lot else. At least that was my experience. And so a lot of reading, a lot of writing, a lot of working on your public speaking skills, a lot of working on your interpersonal skills, because you are either serving people or working with people. There's no way to get around it. And if you want to succeed, then especially if you're a woman, then you need to be able to figure out how to work with others.
Absolutely.
That's what I got.
Yeah. Kind of switching gears to touch on leadership for a little bit here.
Yeah.
So what skills, attitudes, and behaviors did you have to learn or adopt to achieve success as an attorney?
Yeah, so that's a really interesting question, because I, like I said, I had always read and write, and I thought that was fine. But one of my weaknesses when I was in private practice was my writing. I was known as a public speaker, right? Like I was very accomplished at that. And I was a very accomplished trial lawyer. But as far as like writing briefs and stuff, my firm didn't really trust me. So I had difficulty when I was in private practice because I was in a space where they felt like my strengths lied elsewhere. Me going to the court was also strategic. I'm a very strategic person. Okay, so another thing about me, I love puzzles. I'm a very strategic person. I don't make a move without really thinking about it. And so I think that like, I knew that I had this hole in my skill set, right? Even if it wasn't real, it was perceived, right? I'd gone to a Black girl from Black school. Let's be honest, Black girl from Black school who speaks well. Why would we expect her to be able to write, right? There wasn't even, they never even, I didn't really start to get good writing assignments, right? And I wasn't really pushed to it. And so me going to the Supreme Court and becoming a law clerk, that's what I did as a deputy counsel. I was a law clerk. I wrote opinions. That's all I did. I wrote opinions for 4 years. I reviewed appeals and I wrote to the Supreme Court justices. They had to review my work. I had 2 people who would review anything before it was published. I have opinions that are, out there in Westlaw all over the place. I wrote memorandum decisions, so they're different, but, I wrote opinions for 4 years and I did not speak, outside of being in counsel before the Supreme Court justices defending what I'd written. And so that's where my speaking was a plus, right? Because I'm nervous enough about the writing. At least I know. Yeah. Okay. But like, seriously, I had to be very focused and very conscientious about building that skill, building the skill of being a writer, and being a legal writer and being seen as a legal writer.
And a legal writer is not just that's just not an ordinary storyteller. It's a whole different kind of writing, isn't it?
It's a whole different kind of writing. And so it was a skill that I had to develop. And so that is one huge skill that I had to develop. We all kind of bring ourselves into all of our situations, right? So one thing that I've really had to work on is just like not adopting a victim mentality to things. And that is a skill. If you are a person whose mind goes to victim, you gotta get your mind out of that.
I know. You're not going to survive. You're not going to survive.
Exactly. You're not going to survive. Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm talking over you.
Oh, no. That's it. I can tell just from listening that you won't be able to survive if you don't kind of, not make yourself that victim.
And that's the thing. I encountered a lot of people who just would look at me and assume that they're going to win their case, right? Like that I don't know what's going on, right? And when I was a prosecutor, okay, so I have to talk a little bit about my record as a prosecutor to talk about my trajectory, because I did not lose, okay? I won everything I took to trial, except for one, okay? And Misha Poor, that one, in magistrate court. But other than that, I won every single case. And, that was one of the things, people would come in the room and I would have to deal with all these microaggressions, right?
Right.
And then they would see me speak before a jury. And then it's very easy, right? To say, well, it's just that she's charming. It's just that she's cute. It's just that she knows how to talk. There's no substance behind it, really. But you don't win case after case after case.
You lose, that's right. So it's got to be some skill right there.
Right, because I am at heart a tactician. I'm a strategist. I'm someone who likes to do puzzles, like literally. Like I take my husband to those escape game places for dates.
Poor guy.
We have a great time. That's why we're matched, right? Because that's what I want to do. I want to work out a puzzle in my free time.
Okay.
Okay. And so people, it's one of those things where it's not, I don't really tell people about that part of myself. It's not something I advertise also because it allows for me to slip under the radar. It allows for me to kind of, because that's the other thing. I always tell people I carry trickster energy. People, they don't know how smart I am. They don't know my background. They don't know that. All they know is what they see.
Right, right.
As we were talking before we got on the call about Ketanji Brown Jackson, when you're a Black woman in the law, you have to smile. When you have to be palatable.
Right.
And so being able to balance that, because I can be very fierce, I can get very angry. I have a very strong sense of justice and right and wrong. And I enforce that. And that's a big part of why I won and why I do what I do now. But, being able to say that this situation happened to me, but I'm not a victim of it. I learned a lot. I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about other people. When it comes to the leadership part, I learned the most about the kind of boss I do not want to be once I become a boss. Okay?
There you go. That's a good transition to your leadership style. So when you think about your leadership style, how do you provide direction and how do you get plans implemented and how do you motivate people to get
stuff done? So I'll tell you, the magistrate courts in West Virginia were not terribly thrilled to find out that there was somebody named Olubunmi Kusimo-Frazier running them. And then I came in, brand new leader, right? I'm in charge. They have given me the title of manager. I am tasked by the Supreme Court of Appeals to be a magistrate court expert. I find out that we are not giving out orders uniformly throughout the state. Like people would be found guilty and no one would give them an order.
Really? That's strange.
Whole order thing, yeah. So I was like, yeah, y'all gonna do orders from now on. Week 1 Friday, the memo went out, right? So I came in on Monday to a full-on revolt of my hands. Who does this girl think she is? How old is she? What's her name? Where is she from? How long has she been? Did she even ever do magistrate court? It was like all of that. So I found myself with like a real mess, right? Because like, I think everybody knows that I'm like sweet little Bunmi who always just wants to help. And these people are feeling threatened because I am the leader and I don't see myself as that, right? Like I don't realize that my words have effect and can stress other people.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
And so I am just acting. And so I have learned to slow down, understand that my words have impact. One thing that I did was I started to travel. So Poncho did that when he did the job. And when I told Kitty Dooley that I was thinking about this job, she was like, you're gonna have to travel. And I was like, she was like, you're gonna have to hit every county. That's what Poncho did. And they really liked him. Like, you're gonna have to do it. And I was like, okay. So I took the job and before COVID came, I hit 38 of the 55 counties. And I really spent time with them. I let them yell at me. I let them tell me why they thought I was wrong. If there was somebody in particular, honestly, if I would get a kind of a nasty email or call one week, then they would get an email at the end of the week saying, hey, I'll be there next week to see you guys in person. Let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it. Yeah.
I invited the criticism. I invited, all of that. And I took it in. I took it. And so I think that my leadership style is one of being a servant leader. That's really the only thing I know is how to serve others.
Right.
And I try to serve my team by being, remembering my position of having bosses who didn't understand when you had a small child at home and they were sick, right? And I try to be understanding. I try to encourage and promote those who do really well.
Good.
I'm super proud of is that in state government, women who had not gotten, raises in like 5-6 years, I was able to get them substantial raises.
That's
by
amazing.
basically describing to the court what it is that they truly did. Because they deserved it. And also because I was coming into this position with all these people looking at me, I couldn't do it without them. They were the ones with institutional knowledge, you know? And so, like I said, I'm very calculating. It's not, it wasn't so much that I needed them to serve me, but like magistrate court needed them, right?
Exactly.
And they deserve to be recognized. Just like I'm recognized for the good work I do as the leader, they deserve to be recognized too. And that wasn't necessarily the environment. And so I recognize, and I have people who come into my team who come from lots of different things. I tell my team I appreciate them all the time. We talk about, and I joke about how I got the best team in the court system of West Virginia, because they are on it, period, full stop. And let me tell you, if you're not on it, then you can't be on my team.
That's good. That's
on
good.
it. And so I set really high standards in compliance with the law, with empathy with others, and that sort of thing. And I expect for everybody to meet my standard, period, full stop. We try to be kind. You know what I mean? Kindness is something that's super important to me because I've encountered enough unkindness in my life that I know it can affect people. When, you don't know what somebody is bringing to the room, right? You don't know what kind of day they had. You don't know what people said to them before they left the house, right? That's why I'm so conscientious of what I say to my daughter before she leaves the house every day.
Right, that's right.
Because you don't know how people have been fed, what they've been fed before they come into contact with you. And so I try to practice kindness. I try to not speak if what I'm going to say is going to be rude, or if I'm going to find myself in a space where I'm going to be confrontational. That hasn't always served me, because what happens is you end up like exploding.
Right.
So, or you end up repressing and paralyzing. But I've been learning through that. I didn't, I'm a lawyer. I didn't take any leadership classes. I got a, business degree, 4-year business degree from a state school, like I'm learning this as I go. I bought, when I first started, I bought, you'll find this interesting. I bought Navy SEAL books.
Navy SEAL books, interesting.
Yeah, because I was trying to figure out like how to be a leader, how do you create a culture of leaders? What does that look like? So yeah.
Awesome. Servant leadership. So what coach, you kind of mentioned your interactions with Judge Berger earlier. So what coaching, if any, have you received along your journey, and how did it impact your career?
So, I mentioned Nancy Hill before. Nancy, she had a firm. Her husband still runs Hill, Peterson, Harper, B, and Dietzler. Nancy herself was one of the first women to graduate from WVU School of Law. She graduated 7th in her class. She was super smart.
Wow.
She couldn't get a job. She told me her first job was making $7,000 working for the county. Okay.
Incredible.
The 70s, girl. Okay. And so she really, she was good friends with my mother, and she knew I didn't know any lawyers. I didn't have any lawyers in my family. So she took me under her wing, and she would take me to dinner every Tuesday night from about 2005 to about 2009.
Wow.
Every Tuesday night we would go to Tidewater and we would talk about the law, about life, about God, like about lots of different things. And that was huge. She put a huge investment into me.
Awesome.
And into, cultivating me and talking to me about what was happening during the week at work. And, she was one of the first ones who was like really big on like getting out of the victim mentality. Like, you ain't no victim, girl. You really the shark. They don't know.
Right.
Like, if you can realize that, you know what I mean? Realize who you are in the room, And so she was really big. And then after I had my daughter, I felt very at sea. I felt like I had pretty much accomplished everything I had kind of set out to accomplish in my life. And I was like, what's next? I got a career, I got a husband, I got a kid, but I didn't really feel happy. I didn't really feel fulfilled. I was actually miserable. And so I I decided to do this thing where I started to do something new every week. I was turning 30. Okay. And I decided, I was like, oh no, I was turning 35. I was turning 35. And I decided.
Just a baby. You're still just a baby.
But I was like, okay, there's gotta be more to life than this, right? So I was like, I'm gonna do something new every week. I'm gonna inject newness into my life. And that's something that like is really big about me. Like I'm big on self-improvement. I'm big on new experiences. I'm big on expanding my horizons. And so I started doing new things. So one thing I decided to do was like a hot yoga class.
That's what I was going to ask you. Is that when yoga came into your life?
Yeah. So that's where yoga started. I walked into the hot yoga class with Sarah Golden, and the girls started the class by singing. And it was like my soul was brought home. Mm-hmm. It really was the beginning of a huge change for me and how I present myself in the world, who I am, how I be. Right. Because I talk a lot about being. And it's been an amazing journey. I fell so in love with yoga that within a year of starting to practice, I entered yoga teacher training. I became a yoga teacher, 200 hours certified. I started teaching classes, in Charleston. I could barely touch my toes. And I was teaching yoga. That's how much I loved it. Believed in the healing properties of it because, for a long time, I felt like I was doing a lot of work to prove myself. Right. And with yoga philosophy, we have value just as we are. Mm-hmm. And if we can just tap into our own essence of what makes Bunmi special, what makes Michelle special, right. We just act out of that, then we make a difference, and you make a difference. You don't have to be trying to please everyone and running, having monkey mind, yourself all over the place. And it just has been a thing. So it's been a journey for me. I've been a yogi for 7 years. I have studied with lots of different teachers. It's led me to other things. I study with shamans. I study with energy healers. I do a lot of kind of weird out there stuff because it fuels me. It makes me a better Bunmi. It allows me to show up more as myself, which allows me to be a better leader. It allows me to be present. It allows me to care, right? So much.
Yes. So just some, I've been doing this, asking folks for their keys to effective leadership. What are yours? Based on your experience, what are some keys to effective leadership?
Okay, so you can't be a leader without a team.
That's right. That's right. Absolutely.
You cannot be a leader without a team. Mm-hmm. So as a leader, my number one job is to make sure that my team is 100% doing their best at all times. That means they need to be doing their best in their personal lives too. Okay? They need to be whole, full people doing well. COVID was a huge challenge, right? In trying to help people because we've all had literal physical and mental health issues that we've had to deal with. And so being understanding and really being there, when I started in my division, let me talk about my team and what I came into. So I came into a division of 5 who were supporting the entire state of West Virginia. Boston. Okay.
Yeah, that's for 55 counties.
For 55 counties, over 400 employees. Yes. We enact new legislation. We provide legal and financial and administrative support. And I have built my team by 100% by being able to identify and isolate the need, by creating new positions, by creating a team that involves. I have testers now for our computer system, so dedicated testers, people that's what they do. I have trainers. I have financial support clerks. I have paralegals. I have a full team now. So no one is so exhausted. Wow. And no one feels like they can't take vacation, right? And no one feels like they can't have a life because they're doing their work.
They have to work and work and work, yeah.
Right, and we don't live to work. And I believe that even as a leader, I truly believe that we live in order to help and inspire others. And so we have to be able to be it ourselves to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Self-care is a huge part of that. I'm a big person on self-care.
Absolutely.
I'm on self-care for my team, right? So self-care doesn't stop at me. Mm-hmm. Yo, why haven't you taken a day off?
Get your rest. Get your rest. I totally believe in that as well. Absolutely.
Yes, we are given time by the state. It's generous.
Take your time off.
It's absolutely there to take. I think, and honestly, it sets you apart as a leader. Mm-hmm. Do little things like that in today's environment, and especially in West Virginia. Maybe in other places, but what I am doing in my office is groundbreaking, okay? What I do and the way in which I encourage my team, it's like next level, because my team knows that they can take the time, but they also show up in a way.
That's right.
Out, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And it allows me to have that trust. And so when you trust your team, when you have people who are competent at what they do around you, right? Mm-hmm. You don't have to micromanage. You don't. Person. You get to live in joy. They get to live in joy, and we get to attack the problem. I remember I had an issue with an employee one time, and my mom was talking to me about this idea of negative work. Negative work is when you are spending time dealing with things that don't solve the actual problems of the goal of the organization. Worried about your people. One of the things that I strive to do, and I'm big on process improvement. My dad is an engineer, right?
Yes.
So I'm big on process improvement, right? I am big on it, right? My dad is like, Six Sigma, how can we make this better? He's always like that. So it's like always been in my head. So I'm always, how can we make this better? How can we make more money? How can we be more efficient? How can we, make this work better for people? Mm-hmm. The answer was to bring more people on board, was to actually properly staff the team, right? Once the team is properly staffed, we're up and running, right? Like we're going, it's time to go. And so, I think that that's a big thing. I also listen to my team. My team tells me I'm wrong. My team will say, they'll say, well, this is the problem. And I'll say, well, I think da 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 da. And they'll say, well, actually, da 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 da. And I'll say, you know what, you are dead right. Okay.
And it's good that you have that relationship where they're comfortable telling you when.
But you have to cultivate that.
You have to absolutely.
That is not something that happens overnight. It did not happen overnight. I had to tell them in the beginning, if I send something out and there's a typo on it, that's on y'all, because I sent it to y'all first. So if you're not telling me, okay,
that's right.
Take me L. But I'm also gonna be turning around looking at you like, why you got me looking crazy? What we don't do over here is look crazy. What we do is do it right. That means you check me too, right?
That's
we do our stuff right. But it took a year, 2 years, 3 years, right?
Right.
Encouraging that, but also being humble. So when they speak up and they say you're wrong, you can't get proud, right. Go into your feelings and be like, but I said X, Y, Z. It's like, nah, girl. Thank you for making sure that we
I'm glad you caught that. Thank you.
Right. I'm glad that you caught that. Exactly. This is important. We are not, and I have this saying that I say with them. What we are not going to do is have my slip showing. Okay.
Right.
It's a very Southern
no one
thing,
wears
right?
anymore. You have to come up with another saying, right?
What's that?
I said, no one wears slips anymore, so you'll have to come up with another saying.
But Michelle, my mama tries to get me to wear a slip to everything. Okay?
Oh my. I don't even
know. And here's the other thing. Let's talk about challenges. So here's the other thing. My metaphors hit, right? Because I am a young person who often supervises people who are older than me at this point. Mm-hmm. And I've been doing that for a lot of my career. I've had to step in and I have an assistant who is old enough to be my mother, right? Wow. And when they went to secretarial school, what they didn't imagine was they were going to be working for an Olubunmi Kusimo-Frazier and her fly outfits, okay? That was not imagine.
That took some adjusting, I'm sure.
Of course, it has always. In every place, it always takes time. but you can build your credibility through just like being honest, right?
Being transparent, being your authentic self. Absolutely.
And that's what I try to do. And I try to show up as that every day. And even when I travel to like those 38 counties, they got authentic Bunmi, you know, which means like, yo, if I don't agree with you, then we're going to go back and forth across this, just like we did when I was in Charleston. I'm the same girl. I'm going to fight you here. I would fight you there, you know, and so that they know that like this is real. And it's taken a while, but I think that, you know, it's 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. It's state government. My officials are elected, and there's a, you know, but we do the best that we can, you know. And so that's what I'm putting forward. So that's kind of like that's how it goes over here. It's very hippie.
Absolutely, that's wonderful. Wonderful. With your education and experience, you could live anywhere. What keeps you in West Virginia?
So that's like a really interesting question, because I think that for a long time I felt like I needed to get out of West Virginia.
A lot of people say that, but it's like I always wonder, we're all, we remain here. So what is your?
Yeah, I felt like that for a long time, but like particularly over the last several years, I was able to kind of fulfill everything I wanted to fulfill here in West Virginia. I was able to fall in love. I was able to start a family. I was able to buy a home. I was able to, you know what I mean? Do the things that I've kind of wanted to do. I was able to join the clubs I wanted to join, right? And like, and also like I have land, like, you have family in New York. Like, I'll just like do this dig. I got family in New York. They don't have land, and
it's so much more difficult, right?
It is so much more difficult, right? And so like we make a fraction of what they make in the city, but we have the ability to like own a house with a double plot, and I'm able to grow my roses in the summer, and I have a goldfish pond, and I have deer that walk through my yard, and I like literally know the schools of deer that live in my neighborhood, like, and they know me, like they leave their babies, their fawns in my yard and around my house. And I won't leave. Like if a deer has left her baby or her fawn around my house, like I stay and guard that baby until she comes back. And so it's one of those things where, and then also my family is here. So I've been able to have an additional 17 years of living in the same town as my mom and dad, for better or worse, right? I know that I have lived my life with my parents. And so, I'm very much a daughter in that way, right? It's not personal to people who choose to leave, but like for me, it's something that has been very fulfilling and enriching in my life, right? It's helpful for me now that I have a small child to have my parents in town.
Support, absolutely.
To pick up my daughter like all the time, right? Like, they don't necessarily keep her in the evenings because like Naomi, like she really likes to be at home with mommy and daddy.
Right.
But we do, but I do have that support. I've got lots and lots of support,
Awesome.
So it really helps. And so I don't have FOMO anymore. Like I don't have fear of missing out. I don't feel that way because honestly, and also here's like the other thing. So like one of the big things about living in Charleston was like the clothes, right? Like the shopping is awful here. But because of the internet,
you can get anything,
right? Where you can get your square footage and you can get your dream wardrobe.
There you go.
You can do it all right here in the mountains, right?
There you go.
It takes that away, and you can travel for experiences. You can travel if you want to see a Broadway show. You can, do that sort of
absolutely
or special. But I don't. I've thought about moving to New York several times. I don't like the idea of having a 2-hour commute. I don't like the idea of having a pace of life where I don't have land, where I can't grill out, where I can't, lay out in my bathing suit on the weekend, right? In my own land, minding my own business,
Right.
And so, and I think that like a lot of people move here and they find the benefits. There are plenty of people who move here from other places and they stay and they raise their children here. And so I think that like you're one person, right, who has moved here and found benefit in living here. It's been,
and I've been here now longer than I've been anywhere else. It's kind of
right. And so it's like one of those things. Now I do say that the mountains suck you in. They're kind of a cage. They're a cage. you know, can also be kind of limiting. But for those of us who have vision beyond the mountains, then the mountains are just a protective kind of bowl that we live in.
Absolutely. When we want
wonderful community, we have community. We have community in a way that people don't have in other places. You know, you're able to know people. I go into meetings and I meet people who have known me since I was in high school, right?
Oh, wow.
And, you know, and it's like, that is community. Like, because I'm still the same Bunmi. Like Miss Sullivan, I ran into her and she was like, "You look the same." And I'm like, "I'm the same." You know?
That is so true. So true. So as we wind down, what's next? What's next for you?
Well, okay, I'll just start with Magistrate Court. I'm super excited about an initiative that we're starting called the Substance Use Disorder Initiative. This initiative is aimed at really trying to address the opioid epidemic and the overdose epidemic and the death epidemic in West Virginia by using those who come into contact through Magistrate Court and referring them to medication-assisted treatment, doctor-assisted treatment for evidence-based healing therapy, and really using our space as a Magistrate Court as a more rehabilitative space and a community space rather than a punitive space. So I'm getting started with that. I'll be introducing that in April at the Magistrate Court Conference. I've created a stakeholders committee with people statewide. And I'm also working with John Unger, who's now Magistrate Unger, formerly Senator Unger. We're going to be working to create a pilot family treatment court in Berkeley County, West Virginia, in Martinsburg. And I am a Magistrate Court treatment court, doing DUI and drug things, and also writing a bill that will establish magistrate treatment courts throughout the state. So that's kind of like my short.
That sounds huge and very progressive. Yeah.
Well, that's where we are, right? So that's
awesome.
That's what I'm working on short term. Long term, entrepreneurship is 100% in my future. It's something that's been a goal of mine and something that I've been like really excited about for a while. For a long time in my career, I always thought I'd work for other people. But once I had a daughter, I realized you can't build wealth by working for other people. So I really am interested in being an entrepreneur, and really kind of just continuing to grow, you know, personally, spiritually, and really figuring out how Bunmi can serve others, like in this incarnation, at the least amount of stress to myself.
That's it. That I like that part. With the least amount. I wish you all the best. Thank you so much for joining me on Fostering Solutions, and I wish you all the best with your future endeavors. I see greatness all over you.
So. Oh, thank you. And thank you for inviting me. And I do have one last thing to say. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu, which is Sanskrit for may all beings everywhere be happy and free, and may my thoughts, words, and actions contribute to that happiness, which is one of my mantras that I repeat to myself every day. So may everyone be blessed.
Wonderful. All righty. Take care.
Thanks, Michelle. We'll talk soon.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.